Right now, the context of the situation is incredibly tense and fraught with anxiety. Drew is slowly but surely regaining his mobility, breaking free from the paralyzing state that Willow desperately needed him to stay in to maintain her control. Kai, the observant insider who has been lingering in the background, has noticed these subtle movements and is already highly suspicious of what Willow is hiding behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Willow is banking everything on Jack to deliver the missing black box evidence to neutralize Drew, once and for all. But time is a luxury she simply does not have anymore. Every twitch of Drew's fingers, every shift in his posture is a ticking clock counting down to her absolute ruin. This is where my theory takes a very dark, visceral turn. I genuinely believe that when every single exit door slams shut, Willow will stop caring about that elusive black box entirely. The blackmail material will become completely irrelevant because she will realize that a much simpler, albeit infinitely more dangerous, solution exists right in front of her. She needs to silence Drew permanently. The panic is setting in deep within her bones, and blind panic breeds catastrophic, irreversible decisions. She is no longer playing a game of leverage or negotiation. She is playing a ruthless game of survival. When a person feels their entire perfect life slipping through their fingers, the veneer of civilization strips away, leaving only raw, murderous intent. Let us paint a vivid picture of how this horrific scenario could actually go down. I theorize that Willow might launch a sudden, unprovoked attack on Drew just before he fully regains his physical strength. She knows his physical limitations right now, making him the perfect, vulnerable target for an ambush. After rendering him unconscious or completely defenseless with a heavy object or a potent sedative, she would not call for medical help or confess to a mistake. Instead, she would drag his heavy, incapacitated body into her own vehicle. The goal here is not to transport him to a medical facility for care. The goal is to orchestrate and stage a horrific, fatal car crash that looks entirely like a tragic, unavoidable accident to the untrained eye. Imagine the chilling scene she would try to set in the dead of night. Willow, sitting gripping the steering wheel with an incapacitated Drew slumped over in the passenger seat, driving out to a treacherous, steep incline, a winding cliffside road, or a massive concrete obstacle. She would intentionally crash the vehicle, calculating the angle and speed to ensure the impact is severe enough to be fatal for him, while simultaneously ensuring her own survival through deployed airbags and seatbelts. When the authorities and paramedics finally arrive at the mangled wreckage, she would play the hysterical, traumatized survivor to absolute perfection. She would weave a fabricated, tear-soaked tale about how the brakes were suddenly cut, causing her to lose complete control of the vehicle in the dark. It is a terrifying level of premeditation that shows just how far she has fallen. But this is exactly where the theory gets even more sinister and twisted. A staged crash needs a believable culprit, someone with a plausible motive to tamper with those brakes and cause the accident. If you ask me, Willow will set her malicious sights directly on Kai to be her sacrificial lamb. Kai is one of the very few people who knows the truth about Drew recovering his mobility. He has seen the subtle movements, he has connected the dots, and he knows Willow is hiding a massive, dangerous secret. He is the loose end that threatens to unravel her entire carefully constructed narrative, making him the most dangerous person to her freedom. All it takes is for Willow to notice that Kai is acting differently around her, perhaps avoiding eye contact or asking too many pointed questions. Once she realizes he knows too much, Kai transforms from an annoying variable into the absolute perfect scapegoat for her crime. Willow could easily plant fabricated evidence to seal his fate. She might steal tools from his workspace to leave in her trunk, or manipulate security footage to make it look like Kai was lurking around her vehicle just hours before the crash. She would spin a venomous narrative to the police, suggesting that Kai had a personal vendetta, or perhaps that he was trying to silence Drew himself for his own twisted reasons. She would twist the truth so severely that the detectives would have no choice but to look at the young defensive man as their prime, undeniable suspect. Think about the sheer, unadulterated devastation this would cause for Kai. If Drew actually dies in this staged accident, All the breadcrumbs Willow maliciously dropped will lead straight to his doorstep. A young man, already viewed with suspicion by some, would find it nearly impossible to convince the seasoned authorities that the sweet golden girl of the town is actually a cold-blooded mastermind orchestrating a murder. Kai would not only lose his chance to expose the truth about Drew's condition, but he would also be facing a lifetime behind bars in a maximum security prison for a brutal murder he had absolutely nothing to do with. By executing this plan, Willow would effectively eliminate two massive threats to her livelihood with one calculated, devastating strike. Now, I have to pause here for a moment and argue against my own theory, because it is a lot to process. Is Willow truly capable of this level of cold-blooded, premeditated murder? We have seen her manipulate situations, we have seen her lie to protect her secrets, and we have seen her panic when backed into a corner. But staging a fatal crash and intentionally destroying an innocent young kid's entire life? Part of me wants to argue that she is just a terrified mother making impulsive, bad choices under extreme duress, not a seasoned, sociopathic criminal. It is incredibly hard to reconcile the sweet, nurturing woman we used to know with a killer who would drag a helpless man to his death. However, when I look closely at how easily she slipped into deception recently, how effortlessly she lied to Michael and manipulated the volatile situation with Tracy, the capacity for profound darkness is undeniably there. Tracy even warned everyone, comparing her directly to the infamous Nell. Maybe Tracy was not just being cruel or vindictive. Maybe she was the only person in town who actually saw the mask slipping from Willow's face. Desperation changes people on a molecular level, and Willow is arguably the most desperate person in town right now, terrified of losing her family, her status, and her freedom. But this is where it gets incredibly interesting, guys. Just when you think Willow has orchestrated the perfect, inescapable crime, a massive, unforeseen variable is bound to crash the party and ruin her plans. I am talking about Tristan. We all know Tristan just arrived in town as a brilliant, confident, and promising new surgeon. But in this dramatic universe, nobody just shows up to practice medicine without a deeply rooted, hidden agenda or a secret past tying them to the canvas. I have a massive feeling that there is something much larger, much more explosive, hiding beneath his professional, sterile exterior. What if Tristan is not just a random doctor looking for a fresh start? What if he is actually the secret biological son of Drew? Think about the timeline and the complex history of these characters. Years ago, Drew could have easily had a brief, fleeting romance or a passionate one-night stand with a woman whose name he barely remembers today. That unnamed woman could have raised Tristan entirely on her own, struggling to make ends meet, never revealing the true identity of his wealthy father until recently. Or perhaps Tristan, with his medical background, discovered the truth himself by digging through old medical records, blood types, and DNA registries after his mother passed away. If Tristan is indeed his biological son, it completely recontextualizes his entire arrival in Port Charles. He did not come to town for a heartwarming family reunion or to ask for a handout. He likely came to confront the man who abandoned him and his mother, demanding answers and perhaps even seeking a bit of emotional revenge. He arrived with a massive chip on his shoulder, fueled by years of unresolved anger and resentment towards a father who lived a life of luxury while he struggled. But fate has a very twisted, ironic sense of humor, and timing is absolutely everything when it comes to long-buried secrets. Imagine the cinematic, heart-pounding climax of this storyline. Right as Willow is executing her dark plan on a rainy, secluded road, right as she is loading a helpless, drugged Drew into that car to end his life and frame Kai for the tragedy, Tristan happens to stumble upon the scene. Maybe he was secretly following Drew to gather the courage to confront him, or maybe he just happened to be driving down that exact road at the right time. As a highly trained medical professional, Tristan's instincts would immediately kick in. He would recognize that the man in the passenger seat is still alive, in distress, and in desperate need of immediate medical intervention. More importantly, as a son who just discovered his bloodline, Tristan would not be able to just stand by in the shadows and watch his biological father be murdered in cold blood, regardless of the deep resentment and hatred he holds in his heart. I can vividly see Tristan rushing in through the pouring rain, physically stopping Willow in her tracks, pulling her away from the vehicle, and subduing her before she can put the car in gear. He would immediately call the authorities and his colleagues to rush to the scene. In one single heroic and chaotic action, he would completely shatter Willow's entire house of cards into a million unfixable pieces. If this plays out the way I see it, the ripple effects across the entire town will be astronomical and permanent. Drew survives the brutal attempt on his life, only to wake up in a hospital bed and discover he owes his very survival to a grown son he never even knew existed. The emotional weight of that realization would shift his entire character trajectory. Kai is miraculously saved from being framed, dodging a bullet that would have ripped his entire future away, leaving him traumatized but free. And Willow is finally caught red-handed, stripped of her Golden Girl facade forever, and forced to face the horrifying, undeniable reality of her own monstrous actions in front of everyone who ever loved her. This is the exact kind of narrative flip that changes the entire landscape of a summer storyline. Tristan inadvertently becomes the heroic savior of the very man he came to verbally destroy, finding a strange path to redemption for a father he hates. Meanwhile, Willow crosses a violent line she can never, ever return from, cementing her status as the new villain of the era. It leaves us with a chilling, lingering question to ponder as we watch these upcoming episodes unfold. If Tristan truly is the one to bring Willow down and expose her darkness, what does the tragic fallout look like for a family that realizes the sweet woman they protected so fiercely was the real monster all along?
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.